So you may not really like this palette just as a personal preference. Like it might look too kind of aggressively Easter for you or too kind of neon preppy. Um, it does have good contrast though, between the green and the magenta. My concern with it is that it may be difficult for people to see this kind of contrast if if they have red green kind of color blindness. If you can't see the difference between the red part of the spectrum and the green part of the spectrum, this magenta may kind of like actually be a little bit problematic. And so we can test that by using Color Oracle. And if we go to deuteranopia, the common form of color blindness, you wind up with this kind of of a contrast. And you may not think it looks. You may think actually, well, hey, that looks actually better. It's not quite so preppy. And you know, you've got decent contrast between the yellow and this kind of like blue-gray smudge. But my concern is if we go back to the regular image and we look at some of these smaller hamlets that are out in the countryside that are still relatively large hamlets, but compared to Shanghai, they're small. They've got good contrast. Like the MJ glove is directly over one there. They've got good contrast in this matrix, but when you go to look at it, I feel like they disappear, and I can no longer really see that very well. So let's try to work on improving the contrast of this for folks that can't distinguish red and green. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do here. And I'm going to ask you to try to do this on your own because I think it's good practice for understanding how these viz parameters work when you have when you are doing custom enhancement on each individual band. So the basic idea is that I want you to swap the green and blue bands. So my thinking on this is that if we go back to additive color and we look at here, what we have primarily in our image is this electric green and this magenta. So that's telling me that I'm getting green here because this band, the middle band, is very high, and I'm getting magenta because the other two bands are high. And what I wanted to try to do is shift from from the green and magenta to more of a blue and a yellow. And so what I'm suggesting that you do is you leave the red alone and you just swap out the green and blue. You switch those. So that's the idea here is that if I go back to the Landsat wipe and go to the try to accommodate color blindness, I'm asking you to keep the red channel the same. So use the same band for the red channel as you did previously, but just swap the green and the blue channels. So use the band that had been shown with the blue color in the last one. Use that for green and vice versa. Whatever had been used in green, use it for blue. And you're going to have to switch over the min and maxes of these two. So it should be a little challenging, but hopefully doable. And here's the goal. You're going to get this kind of like um, weird green. It's kind of like Toxic Avenger River, which uh, is just the way it looks um, to me right now. And you get this kind of blue. Uh, it's almost like a pottery glaze kind of blue of the agricultural land, and then the built-out area is a little bit more yellow, and you still get good contrast in these little tiny hamlets. And then if we test it for color blindness, I feel like you still retain that contrast here. So this is an image that it's still a little bit harder to read than what we had been looking at for me at least. But it does at least try to accommodate and show the contrast for folks that can't see that red green um, thing. Okay, so that's the goal is to when you if you do this successfully, you should be able to hit run, and then the map will draw a couple of things. It'll automatically draw this false color, but you'll have this. Um, I think the politically, I think the correct term is color vision deficiency, but I don't know. I'm awkward saying that, but it's there for people who could use it. And so Yep, I call this the CB Viz, which I'm asking you to do. And if you follow that naming convention, this check, which you'll do next, should work. So try to do this color blindness part, and then we'll move on.